Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a look at something really quite groundbreaking in prenatal care. Non-invasive prenatal diagnostics, NIPD for short.
Yes, it's about understanding a baby's health genetically without any risky procedures.
Exactly. Just by analyzing, tiny bits of fetal DNA, the CFF DNA that are actually floating around in the mother's bloodstream.
It's pretty amazing science. It allows screening for various conditions, genetic abnormalities, that kind of thing.
And it's a huge shift away from older, more invasive methods. Safer, often earlier insights.
That's the key takeaway, really. Safety and earlier information.
So for this deep dive, we're working from a detailed market report. It looks at the global NIPD scene for 2025.
Right, and our job here is to pull out the key insights for you. What's driving this market? Where's it heading?
We want to give you a clear picture of this evolving field, kind of a shortcut to understanding what's important right now in NIPD.
Okay, so where do we start? The overall market size.
Let's do that. The report projects the global market to hit USD 500 and 240 million in 2025, $5.24 billion.
Which is already a very substantial number. Shows how widely adopted this has become relatively quickly.
It does. But the future projection is even more striking, isn't it?
Absolutely. By 2033, it's expected to reach USD 132 million.
Wow, so more than double.
Yeah, that's a compound annual growth rate, a CAGR of 10.6% between 2025 and 2033. Pretty impressive growth.
So what's fueling this? Why such strong growth?
Well, there are several factors. A big one is just growing awareness globally about prenatal health and why early detection matters.
Parents are more informed, seeking better options.
Exactly. And that ties into the demand for safer alternatives, moving away from things like amniocentesis if possible.
Makes perfect sense. Less risk is always preferable.
And unfortunately, there's the continued prevalence of genetic disorders and other pregnancy complications. So the need for effective screening is always there.
Okay, so need, awareness, and safer tech. Let's look at the geography. Where is this market concentrated?
Right now, North America is the leader. It holds over 40% of the market share in 2025.
Over 40%. That's significant.
Yeah.
What's the value there?
USD 1938.8 million for 2025. And it's still growing at a good clip, about 9% CAGR projected through 2033.
And within North America, is it mostly the U.S.?
Predominantly, yes. The U.S. market is about USD 729.7 million in 2025, growing at 8.8%.
All right.
Canada is also strong, USD 232.7 million, with actually a slightly higher growth rate, 9.8%. And Mexico is significant too, 176.4 million, growing at 9.5%.
Interesting. So North America leads. Who's number two?
That would be Europe, holding over 30% of the market share.
Okay.
Their 2025 market size is estimated at USD 419.6 million with a projected CAGR of 9.6%. It's also very solid growth.
Are there standout countries in Europe?
Yeah, the report mentions a few key ones. Germany is actually the largest, around USD 300.9 million, growing at 9.8%.
Oh.
The UK is also big, USD 255.3 million, and growing faster at 10.4%. Then you've got France, Russia, Italy, Spain, all contributing significantly.
Now, you mentioned growth rates. Where's the fastest growth happening?
That's the Asia-Pacific region, APAC.
Right.
They hold about 23% of the market currently, which is USD 257.6 million in 2025. But their projected CGR is the highest globally at 13.4%.
13.4%. That's really taking off. Why such rapid expansion there?
It's a combination of things, definitely increasing awareness, like elsewhere, but also factors like rising average maternal age in many countries there.
Which increases the perceived need for screening.
Exactly. Plus, you have improving healthcare infrastructure, making tests more accessible, and often government initiatives pushing for better genetic testing services.
Got it. Any specific hotspots within APAC?
China's a huge market. USD 528.2 million, growing at 12.9%. And India shows really remarkable growth potential, a 15.3% CGR, though starting from a smaller base of USD 125.8 million.
Wow, 15.3%.
Yeah. Japan, South Korea, Australia, Singapore, they're all showing strong double-digit growth, too. It's a really dynamic region for NIPD.
Okay, and quickly, the other regions, South America, Middle East, Africa.
Yep, South America has just over 5% share, about USD 199 million, growing at 11.3%. Brazil and Argentina are key there. The Middle East is smaller, around 2%, nearly USD 210 million, but growing fast at 11.9%. Saudi Arabia, UAE, Turkey leading.
Okay.
And Africa has about 1% share, roughly USD 115 million, also growing well at 10.9%. South Africa and Nigeria are mentioned as key markets.
So growth is pretty widespread, even if the starting points differ. Let's shift gears slightly. The report also breaks the market down by, like, test types, right?
It does. Looking at specific tests, maternity 21 comes up as a sort of established and dominant tool. Been around a while, well recognized.
Right, I've heard of that one. What makes it stand out?
It offers a pretty comprehensive screen for the main trisomies, Down syndrome, Edwards, Patau, plus fetal sex and some other conditions. Good track record for accuracy.
Okay. Are there others gaining ground?
Yes. Harmony, which is from Roche, is highlighted as a fast-growing category. It's known for its accuracy, too, and has penetrated the market effectively.
Makes sense.
And the report also lists others like Panorama, Verify, and DFY. It's a crowded space with several options.
Okay, so that's the what. What about the why, the applications? What are these tests mostly used for?
The biggest application by far is screening for those common trisomies we mentioned: Down syndrome, Edwards syndrome, Patau syndrome. That's the primary use case for most people.
That seems logical, given their prevalence. But you mentioned faster growth in another area.
That's right. Testing for microdeletions and microduplications. That's the fastest growing segment.
Why is that?
Well, two things. Mainly, one, the technology itself is getting better, more sensitive, so it can detect these smaller genetic changes more reliably now.
Oh.
And two, there's just more awareness now about these rarer conditions and the impact they can have. So demand for testing is increasing.
Interesting. So the tech enables looking deeper. Speaking of tech, what's powering these tests?
The dominant technology here is next-generation sequencing, or NGS.
Right.
Its ability to sequence lots of DNA fragments simultaneously and accurately makes it perfect for analyzing that cell-free fetal DNA from the mother's blood. It's efficient and powerful for this application.
NGS is everywhere in genetics now. Is anything challenging it in the NIPD space?
Well, Whole Genome Sequencing, WGS, is mentioned as rapidly developing.
Okay, WGS. How's that different?
Instead of looking at specific regions, like NGS often does for targeted panels, WGS aims to sequence the entire genome. It offers potential for even more comprehensive analysis.
But it's not dominant yet.
Not in NIPD specifically, not yet. It's more complex, generates vast amounts of data,
Yeah.
but it's definitely an area of development to watch.
Understood. And who are the main customers, the end users, ordering these tests?
Hospitals are currently the biggest end user segment.
That makes sense. They have the patients, the prenatal clinics?
Exactly. Established infrastructure, patient access, specialized departments. It's the natural hub for this kind of testing.
But is that shifting at all?
Yes. Diagnostic laboratories are identified as the fastest growing end user segment.
Why labs specifically?
Couple of reasons. Hospitals and clinics are increasingly outsourcing specialized genetic testing to these labs.
Ah, okay. Economies of scale, perhaps.
Probably. And also, the rise of direct-to-consumer, or DTC, options often relies on these diagnostic labs to perform the actual analysis.
Right, the DTC trend. We should probably dig into the market dynamics now, the drivers and maybe restraints. What's really pushing this market forward?
A key driver is simply the increasing demand from both parents and clinicians for early and accurate detection of any potential fetal issues. Information is power, right?
Absolutely. And we already touched on the prevalence of genetic conditions and pregnancy complications being a constant factor.
We did. And related to that is the growing use of NIPD, specifically in high-risk pregnancies. It's seen as a much safer way to get crucial information compared to invasive tests in those situations.
That safety aspect seems paramount.
It really is. Plus, there's that general rising tide of awareness about prenatal health globally. The report mentions WHO data on infant mortality, linking it to the need for better prenatal screening and early detection.
And of course, the technology keeps getting better.
Definitely. Continuous innovation in genetic testing, tech NGS getting faster and cheaper, AI helping with analysis, automation in labs. The report cites ARUP Laboratories launching a new cfDNA test with supposedly better sensitivity as an example of this constant evolution.
So lots of positive momentum. Are there any significant roadblocks? Things holding back even faster growth?
The main one mentioned is cost. These tests can still be quite expensive.
Right.
And that high cost can really limit accessibility, especially in lower-income countries or for people without good insurance coverage. It creates potential equity issues.
That's a really important point. Access is crucial. Does the report mention insurance?
It does. Limited reimbursement policies and patchy insurance coverage in various regions are definitely seen as a barrier slowing down wider adoption.
Okay, cost and coverage are restraints. What about major trends shaping how NIPD is used?
Well, one big trend is just the clear shift towards the cfDNA-based tests and away from older traditional screening methods like biochemical markers, or neutral translucency scans alone.
Because they're more accurate and non-invasive?
Primarily, yes. The performance is generally better. An interesting example the report gives is Natera developing a fetal RhD typing test using cfDNA, partly driven by recent shortages of Rh immunoglobulin. Shows the flexibility of the tech.
That is interesting, adapting to other clinical needs. And we mentioned it earlier, but the direct-to-consumer trend is significant here too, isn't it?
It really is. DTC testing for prenatal information is expanding. It offers convenience, direct access for consumers.
But there are potential downsides.
Well, yeah. Concerns about making sure people understand the results correctly, the limitations of screening tests, and the importance of genetic counseling. Convenience versus ensuring informed medical decisions, basically.
A tricky balance. Okay, with all this growth and innovation, I imagine the corporate landscape is pretty busy.
Oh, absolutely. It's described as dynamic and highly competitive. Companies are really focused on improving their tests, better sequencing, finding new biomarkers, boosting accuracy.
How are they competing? Just R&D.
R&D is huge, but also lots of strategic moves. Collaborations, partnerships, mergers and acquisitions, all aimed at getting a bigger piece of the global market or strengthening their technology portfolio.
Any specific examples?
The report mentioned several. Yourgene Health getting certification in Singapore for its workflow and launching new lab equipment. Illumina releasing updated analysis software. Eurofins Genoma launching a non-invasive test for pre-implantation genetic screening.
So applying similar tech even earlier before pregnancy is established?
Exactly. And Pacific Biosciences acquiring another company, Omniome, likely to bolster their sequencing tech. It shows a lot of activity.
And who are the big names in this space?
It's a mix of large diagnostic companies and more specialized genetics firms. Illumina, Thermo Fisher, Roche, Natera, PerkinElmer, Abbott, BGI Group. The list is quite long, showing a healthy, competitive environment.
Okay, good overview. Let's just quickly recap the regional picture before we wrap up. North America dominates in 2025. Why again?
Strong healthcare systems, high awareness and acceptance of genetic testing, early adoption of new tech, and significant R&D investment. They had a head start in many ways.
But Asia-Pacific is the fastest growing.
That's the key dynamic to watch, yes.
Yeah.
Driven by that mix of rising awareness, changing demographics like maternal age, improving healthcare access, and government support.
So putting it all together from this report, NIPD is a major, rapidly growing global market. Technology is pushing it forward, demand for safer, earlier tests is pulling it. North America leads for now, but Asia-Pacific is where the most dramatic expansion is happening.
That sums it up nicely. It's a really transformative area of medicine with a lot of momentum.
It certainly is. This has been fascinating. It really leaves you thinking, though. As this NIPD technology gets even better, even more accessible, how will that change the landscape of prenatal care long term? And what kinds of choices and maybe ethical questions will become more prominent for expectant parents? Something to ponder as this field keeps evolving.
Definitely food for thought.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.